This will be a video walkthrough on the gummy worm dissection. Prior to picking up the material for the material person, make sure that you've read exactly what you're going to need and don't pick up more than the dissection requires. When you guys get your gummy worm and you have all your materials, Instagram person is ready, and dissector has their gloves on, you're going to orientate your gummy worm in the dissection tray and get a couple of measurements. So that's the external anatomy section of your lab, which is this portion right here. So before you cut anything, before you pin anything, you're going to need to read this and do a couple of things. Now this part right here is going to be done at the very end of the lab. I know it says to draw and color your gummy worm to scale, but you will take care of that at the end of the lab. Once you have gotten the first part checked and I have approved your work, you're going to move on to the dissection section. The person in charge of procedure is going to make sure that everything is followed. Now, it's everyone's responsibility in the group to read the procedure, but it especially falls on the person who has elected to make sure the group follows procedure. This is one of 4 jobs that you can get, and it is an essential job. You are responsible for making sure that your group is on task and they are following protocol number by number. So you'll read all this to them and you'll make sure that they are following along. Again, it's expected that everybody reads the lab, but especially the protocol is the last line of defense to make sure everything is done correctly. So I will not be reading the lab to you. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that I expect out of the lab. You're going to make sure you find the anterior region of the worm. It'll have a little eyeball, like a little stampy eyeball at one end. You're going to put a pin through the anterior region at a 45-degree angle. You can't really see it on this one. At some point you're going to make a longitudinal cut from one section to the other. You're not going to cut all the way down. Please read protocol to see what section and what section. Once you have it open to a certain number of sections, you're going to begin pinning your earthworm down. Now it's really important that these pins are placed at 45-degree angles, and this T right here is perpendicular, not parallel, to the gummy worm. So these T's should be, again, perpendicular or pointed outside in relationship to the gummy worm. And you will keep following protocol, and it will tell you how far to cut and how often you should be pinning, but it'll end up looking something like this. And what I mean by 45-degree angles, this is probably the best shot of it. 45-degree angles keep the internal anatomy of whatever we're looking at open, and you're not placing pins randomly. They're all at 45-degree angles. You pin them deep into the dissection pad. You won't have this black wax material. You'll have a blue pad. You need to push this all the way through till you hit the bottom of the pad. The reason that we do that is so that you get a clear view. These pins are not obstructing your view of the internal anatomy of whatever it is that you're looking at. So you want to make sure they are out of your way, and the way you do that is to place them at 45-degree angles. As you can see, this will lead to some great practice for your earthworm, which is very, very similar to the gummy worm. So the gummy worm will be a dry run, getting us ready for our first real dissection on the earthworm.